Dear Assembly, my task today is as simple as you can imagine. It is to protect you from what's coming. Manipulation, deception, and other malicious use of dark psychology in order to make us look as the bad side, the cruel and heartless one, the people who refuse to help. But that's not what we are. And at the end of the debate, you won't have any skepticism, debate, mistrust, or even uncertainty concerning our position. That being said, may you have one of the greatest mornings. North African countries should reduce the number of Sub-Saharan immigrants inside their territories. The answer is the affirmative, since North African countries have become a destination for Sub-Saharan immigrants who either cannot enter Europe legally or have been prevented from crossing the Mediterranean by the security forces. And because this migration caused those countries multiple and hard challenges, it is only logical to reduce it. Throughout the debate, some of my teammates will be focusing on Morocco, since it's the most developed country in North Africa. You can only imagine the situation in less developed countries, such as Algeria, Tunisia, you name it. But before reducing any immigrants, I was wondering something. Why? Why did they leave their country in the first place? Poverty, violent conflict, environmental stress. These were the answers. While I do feel compassion for those Sub-Saharan immigrants, I soon realized that leaving your own country to go and live in a North African one is nothing else than an illusion. Migrating has never been the ideal dream. It is. Until you go and live in a foreign country and then find yourself living in your worst nightmare. To prove it to you, let's bring the matter closer to us, to home. Imagine someone knocking at your door to go and live with you. You, with your charitable soul, end up accepting. He ends up living a new and better life. But now, imagine 10 people not knocking but destroying your door to live, sleep, and eat with you. None of them, including you, will be to live in good or even adequate conditions. As you can see, our matter are the immigrants and the citizens. If we are willing to reduce the number of Sub-Saharan immigrants inside our territories, we are also ready to help their countries by promoting stability, education, employment opportunities, and reduce the drivers of forced migration, including by promoting resilience, thereby enabling individuals to make the choice between staying or migrating. Migration is a mutual harm for both immigrants and the host country. Unlike migrating, reducing the number of Sub-Saharan immigrants can be the best and only solution. Because migration has nothing that I would dare qualify as positive. So defending such a cause after knowing all of this would be an act of fearfulness, pusillanimity, and godlessness. Today, if me and my team are fighting to defend our position, it is for the good of our country and the good of all humans around the world. Thank you.
February 24, 2022. The day the Russian President Vladimir Putin orders a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The day Russia occupies parts of Ukraine in a major escalation of the Russo-Ukrainian war. The invasion has instigated one of Europe's largest refugee crises since World War II. Around 8.1 million people have been displaced from Ukraine to Europe. The Ukrainian migrants have gotten support from the European Union via its civil protection mechanism and financial assistance which cannot exceed €1,560 per family. The whole world has been mobilized to lend a hand to the poor Ukrainians. The whole world started shaking and would have done anything in order to provide both mental and material support to the poor Ukrainians. But does this world undertake any action when it comes to those Arab, Sub-Saharan people dying on Mediterranean coasts? Does this world even care when it comes to those migrants having substandard living conditions? Our opponents, following their intervention, will probably be stunned to hear that the answer is one big, absolute no. No, and because I will say it loud and clear, an Arab or a black person's life costs nothing to the eyes of the world that would kill for the poor Ukrainians. Our motion here today is an occasion like no other to demonstrate how selfish and forgetful of their own past some can be. Today is an occasion like no other to prove how us, Arab, African, and Amazigh people tend to forget that if we limit the access of Sub-Saharan migrants on our territory, would be as despicable as we qualify friends in other countries to be when they limit our access to their countries. For most, all I can do now is hope. Hope that you have one of the greatest mornings and hope you choose the brightest side. North African countries should not reduce the number of Sub-Saharan migrants on their territories. And that is because migration is not a problem to be solved, but in fact is a powerful driver of sustainable development to the migrant-driven communities. It brings significant benefits in the form of skills, strengthening the labor force, investment in cultural diversity, among others. However, many countries, in response to the irregular growth of migratory movements, are looking towards closing borders as a solution, ignoring that whenever one migration route closes, another opens up. And no, we will not only talk about Morocco. According to the Arab Weekly, the streets of Cairo, Tunis, or Tripoli can turn dangerous with racist harassment and violence to the migrants trying to escape war and poverty. It is to believe that employing those inhuman ways, which our whip will substantiate, is a deterrent. Taken?
You were mentioning Ukraine and Russia. Can you please tell us in precise the relation between them and Sub-Saharan immigrants?
We will get back to you later, my teammate, tonight, because we don't want to spoil our interventions. Let me tell you one thing. That deters nobody, because when one considers the possibility of failure, they can find risk in their lives absurd, and hence avoid taking risks. But when one is looking out for survival, considering that the life they have to lose worthless, their strength becomes incommensurable, because they're not afraid of death. I believe we must, as asylum countries, focus to the solutions to this problem rather than keep equivocating about limiting the number of Sub-Saharan migrants or not. Dear opponents, your position clearly defends all kinds of non-consensual harassment to the Sub-Saharan migrants. And to that I quote, "Every veil secretly desires to be lifted, except the veil of hypocrisy. And though you will resist to hide your true colors, your real identity will eventually show against your will. And you still have nothing to claim about it. You'll tell me later about the bittersweet taste of your own medicine." Thank you.
In the heart of North Africa lies a rich tapestry of cultures and traditions that have been woven together over centuries. From the rolling dunes of the Sahara to the bustling souks of Marrakesh, this region is full of vibrant energy and dynamic creativity. In the dusty streets of northern Africa, a story has been brewing. It begins with the unyielding sun that scorches the earth and the arid wind that carries sand across the borders. It is a story that speaks to the hearts and minds of those who call this land home. For years now, our ground has been traversed by a steady stream of Sub-Saharan immigrants. These intrepid travelers cross deserts, brave oceans, and risk it all for a chance at a brighter future. But as the seasons change and the years pass by, a new perspective has emerged. It is the voice of those who have lived here all their lives, who see the challenges and the issues that the newcomers bring. This is a call to action, a plea for understanding, and a hope for change. Ladies and gentlemen, dear jury, good morning. We all are aware of the current security situation in several North African countries. The issue of criminality by Sub-Saharan immigrants has always been a complex and sensitive one. These travelers live in poor conditions on our land, lacking access to many basic necessities. This factor contributes to a feeling of dissatisfaction and discontent after not finding what they sacrificed everything for, which leads them to turn into criminal activities. Feelings that do explain why they turn to such activities, but do not justify their action in any way. Nonetheless, this increases the rate of human trafficking and smuggling networks among our fields, especially in Morocco, with a rate of 78%, according to UNODC. And since most of them do not have proper documentations or even documents at all, authorities have a hard time tracking their movements, which gives them a leeway to indulge in any kind of illegal activity that they find, thus putting the security and stability of our citizens in jeopardy. Moreover, the lack of resources and facilities to accommodate to this immigrant is also causing social tensions. This has led to many violent clashes between different communities, like the one in Walid bus station. First set up in December 2016, Casablanca hosted one of the biggest enrollment camps in the whole region. It was from migrants that would often travel by bus to Melilla or Ceuta. By 2019, the situation reached breaking point. On any given day, between 1,000 and 1,800 migrants would take shelter in the increasingly overcrowded and unsanitary camp based on a 400 square meter basketball court. However, it all came to an end after a fire completely destroyed the camp in June 2019. Authorities then seized the moment to evict all of its inhabitants, leading them to spread out through the streets of the city with only one dark path to take and only one solution to be heard: stone throwing, property damaging, along with the criminal activities listed earlier. Dear audience, it is time for us to pause and reflect on the impact that immigration has on our communities. It is time for us to have an honest and open dialogue for the sake of our own people and the sake of those seeking a new home. We must take a stand, and we must prioritize the security and stability of our own people while also being mindful of respecting the fundamental human rights of all. The story of North Africa is one of resilience, strength, and hope. It is a story that deserves to be told and a story that can inspire change. By reducing the number of Sub-Saharan immigrants, we can protect the integrity of our own society while also providing better opportunities for those who do arrive at our shores. Thank you.
Improvement, growth, richness. A three-dimensional principle that not even a soul would dare walk out on, let alone purposefully chase it out of our countries, has made itself achievable thanks to migration. As stated in his studies, Michael Clemens, an economist, showed that more migration could make our country spectacularly richer, stating that if 1 in 20 of people that come from poor countries were to work in richer ones, that alone would add more value to the global economy as it gives more access to other capitals and other arrangements of production. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the jury, respected audience, greetings. Never have I known, not in a million years, that this scene that I cherished most would end up being the place of what seems like pure illiteracy, depriving some from acknowledging everything that Sub-Saharan immigrants brought to the table for North African countries, starting from economical ties to humanitarian ones, from promises to commitment. Yes?
You talked about economy and that immigration makes us richer. How did it make Morocco richer?
I will explain that later in my intervention. Thank you. Starting from economical ties to humanitarian ones, from promises to commitment, from capacity to ability. Among the Sub-Saharan immigrants that live in Morocco, nearly 4% of students and young graduates claimed not to have plans for further migration and intended to stay here working. Many young graduates are already starting to integrate into the labor market by finding small student jobs that would allow them to use their full potential that could have been wasted in their hometowns because of economic crisis. On top of freeing skilled and talented souls that were yet to grow their wings and fly high towards the world of innovation, North African countries gain sustainable benefits when it comes to the concept of jobs, whether it was in form of Sub-Saharan immigrants contributing to the labor force in a lot of sectors such as agriculture, constructions and services, etc., or by them starting their own entrepreneurship businesses, which, by the way, can lead to the creation of jobs within our countries. Or even better, helping boost their economy by sending both money and opportunity to their hometowns, or by trading between both of our countries in order to enhance international ties and also facilitate the exchange of goods, services, and resources. And of course, eventually, helping not just the economy of North Africa, but rather the economy of the entire continent. While some are arguing that Sub-Saharan immigrants are nothing but a phenomenon that needs to be reduced, Morocco has already put itself in a path of glory and development, using immigration itself as an efficient tool to diffuse diplomatic values and promote international mobility, as it has tried to prove that, yes, indeed, opportunities can be found for Africans within the continent, and that's by allowing immigrants residency permit and access to our job market and, of course, our economy. This latter focuses on improving our public policies in order to match our international values and also respect our international relationships. Looking back at a 2017 speech before the African Union, King Mohammed VI stated, and I quote, "Migration deserves a new Afrocentric approach, reconciling realism, tolerance, and the primacy of reason over fear." End quote. Thank you.
Dear audience and respected juries, I am so sorry to announce that today you have been fooled, made to think what's wrong right and what's right wrong and what's unacceptable acceptable. But first things first, good morning to all attendants. I am pretty sure that by now you must think that no one leaves their home unless forced to. Well, let me ask you something. Is everyone fit to just do so? Obviously not, because maybe it's a lack of degree, money, goals, whatever gives you the opportunity to rebuild a life. But my dear opponents here seem to think otherwise. So I'm gonna ask you, dear opponents, to just imagine how the world would be like if citizens started migrating just because they felt forced to. You can imagine all the destruction the world will be witnessing. Well, in this case, no need for imagination, because that is exactly what North African countries are living. And that is why they should reduce Sub-Saharan immigrants on their territories. And dear opponents, if you want to talk about how difficult their lives are, how those warriors, those survivors fight their way out from hellish places where poverty and deprivation reign. If you want to talk, I'll let you talk. However, I let my fanciest apologies chime in because my team and I must interrupt you to bring you out of the darkness and show you the light once again. Their problems are not hooked to our country's back. And I know how bad this echoes and how cruel this makes us seem. But it is the truth, and the truth hurts. To give you more reason why you should choose our side of the story, well, it's very easy. North African countries already suffer from many social problems, like poverty and criminality and illiteracy. So if you use common sense for 1 second only, you realize why we are the right side to be on. Another thing I would like to point out is culture, and how every person in this world carries its own culture and identity, and it goes everywhere they go. But at some point, they expect it to become the reality, and that's where the real problem starts. North African countries are already being targeted by many to try and make them lose their identity. So by allowing anyone to get in, you allow any possibility of outcome. For the last hundreds of years, if not thousands, Morocco has been the most North African country migrated to. You might ask why? Well, it's very easy. It's all about its proximity to Europe. This phenomenon has been going on for so long, till nations started calling Morocco Europe's policeman. We save Europe from destruction brought with some immigrants, but who will save us? Well, it must be a lucky day, because I know what will be. Choosing our side, the bright side, the only side you should be on, because we know what it's like to protect what's rightfully yours. And let's face it, Morocco or any other North African country is already is not ready to welcome more people in, because they already suffer with what they have. And if we don't reduce Sub-Saharan immigrants on our territories, they might reduce us. Dear opponents, at this point, you're not only defending someone else, you're forgetting yourselves in the process. Can't you see, dear opponents? Can't you see how wrong what you stand for is? Can't you see that this should not be what you want for your own country, your own blood? Well, I can try to make you see, but I can't make you understand. because the eyes are useless when the mind is blind. Thank you.
So, answering the POI the dear Prime Minister gave already to the leader of the opposition, the relation of our motion with the Russia-Ukrainian war is that everybody would have no excuse and would never say no to taking in white migrants, people like migrants of white color. But when it comes to Arabs, Muslims, or black-colored people, everyone would be against it. Now, racism is an ever-growing issue. And while many historic events have proven it to be useless, it is still ongoing. Domestically, this is probably due to fears of the disappearing of the Moroccan breed, panics of increasing violence and terrorism. But the real question here, are these things really due to migrants? Or is there something else that we often ignore? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is why we should not reduce the number of sub-Saharan immigrants here in North Africa. But before we begin, you need to know something. The main reason why we have sub-Saharan immigrants here in North Africa is because North Africa is their only bridge to Europe. But because of complex border crossing issues imposed by the Europeans, they tend to stay here rather than return to their impoverished lands. This means that returning them forcefully to their home countries would only push them to reattempt crossing to Europe. Of course, through North Africa, but this time with more violence. And while this is a reason for the violence that can occur from some of them, another reason is the ignorance of the state. Because, to be honest, it's the state's fault for leaving lots of migrants in the streets where descent to problem-making can occur. Now this means that North African countries should take ownership and not taken.
Can you please tell me your sources concerning the number of Oriental and African immigrants in Europe?
Would be answered later. So this means that we in North Africa should reduce the number. Sorry, I'm just a little bit dizzy. Sorry, I'm not going to say too much.
Well, we did taste our own medicine, and flash news, it cures. But what you're selling their opposition, well, it destroys. And now, apparently, wanting to protect your homeland is a synonym to being hypocrite and racist. I wonder what dictionary says that. But you are right about one thing. No one takes our Arabs and Muslims, which is why we should prioritize our North African Arabs and Muslims. My name is Sherlock Holmes. It is my business to know what other people do not know. Ladies and gentlemen, today you are going to witness one of the greatest investigations I've ever conducted. The question may seem difficult to some. To me, it is very much clear. Should North African countries reduce the number of sub-Saharan immigrants on our North African territory or not? I've said it long ago, and I'll say it again. Crime is common, logic is rare. Therefore, it is upon the logic rather than upon the crime that we should dwell. Which is why I'll logically prove that my judgment is right, a judgment that is mathematically proven. According to the High Commission for the Plan of the Kingdom, because we give sources, unlike some people, but I don't blame you since no reliable sources would give fake news. Although the number of sub-Saharan immigrants is already high, the flow of immigrants settled in Morocco has increased by 63.3%, according to the IHCP. The number of sub-Saharan refugees and asylum seekers went from a few hundred in 2007 to 19,620 in 2022. But here's what also increased. The unemployment rate between 2013 and 2014 went from 9.2% to 9.9%. Well, it may not seem as huge as the 63.3% increase, but it is, because there's a difference between increase and rate of increase. Absolute poverty has increased by 4.7% between 2004 and 2014, as well as economic vulnerability that went from 4.2% in 2004 to 7.1% in 2014, all according to the HCP. At last, we can finally see that economical struggle Morocco is facing and the number of sub-Saharan immigrants in Morocco are two proportional notions, meaning that the more immigrants in Morocco's territory, the more Morocco struggles economically. And you, as Moroccans, should want only the best for your country, meaning you should want to reduce the economical struggle it's facing, meaning you should want to reduce the number of sub-Saharan immigrants on its territory. So assuming you want the best for your country, reducing the number of sub-Saharan immigrants is a should, if not a must. So now I can confidently affirm that my judgment is mathematically proven right. But to further prove my point, I'll prove it realistically. You know, there's this quote I love: "Charity begins at home," which is the perfect quote for today's motion, because knowing that today the percentage of absolute poverty is 11% nationally, the percentage of relative poverty is 59% nationally, the unemployment rate is 11.8%, that GDP growth fell from 7.9% to 1.2% last year. You can clearly see that Moroccans themselves are struggling to survive. But remind me again what those sub-Saharan immigrants are looking for: basic rights, job opportunities, good living conditions, stuff Morocco can't even give to its own citizens. So how can you expect it to give it to foreigners? For the better of Moroccans, so that job opportunities don't become a fighting matter. For the better of sub-Saharan immigrants, so that they have higher chances of living in better conditions. For the better of Morocco and its economy, Morocco should reduce the number of sub-Saharan immigrants on its territory, which you'd have realized by now, to which I'll say, that's elementary, my dear Watson. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone present. In response to everything that you keep saying, most of the problems that you are blaming on sub-Saharan Africans have nothing to do with them. The root cause of all our problems is corruption within our system. Plain and simple. So instead of blaming them and pointing the finger at them, go and find real solutions to our problems, because pointing the finger at them is just as effective as throwing a dart in the dark. Moving forward, I find today's motion, very different from any other one that I debated in the past. From one side, it was very enriching, but from another, it was unfortunate because I found some disappointing information on North African countries, specifically Morocco. Did you know that Morocco was responsible for the tragic deaths of 37 migrants? No? Well, on June 24th, around 2,000 sub-Saharan African migrants set off at dawn to cross the borders and reach the Spanish city of Melilla. Did you know how Morocco responded? Moroccan police responded with brutal force, killing 37 migrants and wounding hundreds. And those wounded migrants lay unattended for 9 hours before any ambulances or rescue services had arrived. And unfortunately, that led to even more deaths. And even after all of those deaths and the arrests of between 60 and 70 migrants, Moroccan police beat Sudanese and Nigerian migrants who by then were no longer armed and were pleading for help. Now, I don't know about you, but I find this behavior utterly disgusting. You know, I just keep asking myself, why do we resort to such cruel behavior? Why do we respond in such a manner? Why do we forget that at the end of the day, we are all just humans? Shouldn't we strive for a better future? Shouldn't we stand for human rights? Because let me tell you, what happened on June 24th was anything but human. And now, this behavior presented by Moroccans disappoints me in a way that I cannot even express. And the fact that there are other stories out there like this makes me even angrier. You know, it makes me angry because this practically just tarnishes our image. Don't we have historical ties? I mean, according to what I know, North African countries and Sub-Saharan African countries have long-standing cultural, economic, and political ties. By denying them entry or just reducing their number, you're straining that relationship and you're harming cooperation between the two regions. Now, the behavior presented by Moroccans would remind me of one done by a Western country, not an Arab or African one. I mean, we all hear the stories on how Western countries mistreat us, Arabs and Africans, so why should we become like them? Why should we mistreat our dear brothers and sisters from African countries who are already having a tough time in their country? I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, it's not taken. Isn't it paradoxical that African countries are being racist to other African countries? I cannot even comprehend what I'm saying. So let me remind you of something you seem to forget. We are not a European country. We are an African country. So be proud. Name me one European country that was so happy and proud of Morocco to reach the semifinals during the World Cup. Because I can name you a few African ones. And you need to understand something. I don't want our North African countries to become like the Western ones. I don't want us to be selfish, nor do I want us to be racist. I want us to form a strong brotherhood that goes against all that Europe stands for. Yes, you heard that right. And before you say, well, that's how Europe became so powerful, no, I disagree, because you don't gain power by destroying people's lives. That's how you gain fear. And you don't gain power by being selfish or racist. That's how you lose the respect of your people. And you certainly don't gain power by turning your back on your own people. Thank you.
Dear House of Opposition, I won't deny your one or two advantages, but they are nothing compared to the non-ending list of disadvantages. Loss of financial and informational wealth, loss of skilled labor, negative effect on children, and the list goes on. To make it clearer to you, migrating from one place to another can bring about a multitude of challenges and difficulties and disadvantages. Impact families, individuals, and even entire communities will get themselves destroyed. I want to help you. I want to improve. And I want you to understand that immigration is nothing else than an additional weight that prevents us, me, in my country, from development. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the opposition's leader from the opposition house, and today I will allow myself to impersonate your favorite weather forecaster. Without further ado, let's look at our weather. Heat waves of we can't expect African countries to side up with us if we ever limit the Sub-Saharan migrants will hit southern regions of Morocco's Sahara. Tropical cyclones, something absolutely unseen and inconceivable, just like the noxious consequences of failing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And the speech of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI during November 6, 2013, in which was stated that Morocco is a founding member of the African Union and hence works to strengthen and diversify its economic relations with the countries of the continent. P.S. Morocco can't expect to achieve that with limiting the number of sub-Saharan migrants on its territory. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure you are already familiar with this, but begging by sub-Saharan immigrants in our territories has become a contentious issue, with a lot of locals, especially in the tourist fields, claiming that these immigrants are creating a nuisance to the public, being a sort of a burden. And as many of these tourists would rather avoid the region completely, or they will probably prioritize giving to able-bodied individuals instead of ill locals with no capacities. What does that say about our economy and our country? Thank you.
It's funny how you already assumed that we won't give you the source when we actually said we did. The source is MPI, Migration Policy Institute. Now, concerning the other end of the stick, we came to discover that there was yet some ice left to be broken when it came to your awareness. A wave of oppression, violence, and persecution could be the origin of their matrix. And what are we if not a community of equality and justice? A country of hospitality and security, a kingdom of international cooperation. Who are we to not consider the reasons these immigrants are even leaving their countries in the first place to come and work in our countries as if their life depended on it, if it really didn't, if it wasn't some kind of life/death bridge situation. If after everything you still can't see it, then I suggest your opponents you have a little self-reflection session. Maybe that could help your senses. Thank you.
Dear opponents, I can already see you come in with those convincing solutions that only add more fuel to the fire. It's like you're putting two tribes that are on the different ends of the spectrum and hope they don't end up holding out swords and cause British drops to fall on the ground. A wolf cannot befriend a fox. A golden fish cannot befriend a shark. A wandering soul cannot befriend death. These are the rules of the system. This is how it is and how it will always be. Close to my heart, yet still far, far from it. Respected opponents, you might think we're selfish and self-absorbed, but this is what you get for standing up for yourself and for your rights. Thank you.
Now, let me disappoint you, the opposition house. We cannot reduce the number of sub-Saharan immigrants even if you wanted to. Because the truth from a political standpoint is that this can damage ties with African nations, nations that are very important when it comes to international affairs, but also very important when it comes to voting in the UN. That's one side of the coin, but the other side is the European Union. The European Union, let's say that it likes to spread human rights through having ties with only countries who have good human rights. Now, if here in North Africa we start reducing the number of sub-Saharan immigrants, one of the consequences would be damaged ties with the EU, which can damage our international position. And to be honest, here in Morocco, we need these ties for the Sahara problem. We need to rally the international community. In Algeria, they need these ties for anti-Moroccan reasons. While in Libya, they need it for political stabilization. And thank you.
You talked about the welcoming of Europeans. Do you think we have the same resources as them to welcome people? In fact, we can barely welcome ourselves. And we do love our African brothers and sisters, but we love more our North African brothers and sisters because they are our closest ones. And you talked about political interest. Should political interest come before the needs of our citizens? Political interest that we pay too high a price for what we're getting? It's been years we are welcoming migrants from sub-Saharan places at the cost of our land's well-being. Yet the obviously Moroccan Sahara is still a debated matter in a lot of sub-Saharan countries. Ladies and gentlemen, our safety and stability are at stake. But numbers speak louder than words, so today I'll let them speak for me. In 2020, Morocco has legalized 102,600 migrants. Yet, they put in the efforts, but they were useless. Because in Morocco, sub-Saharan immigrants are like an unstoppable flow. The more immigrants they legalize, the more illegal immigrants they get. Thank you.
If you're so worried about the extinction of the Moroccan breed, reducing the number of sub-Saharan African immigrants is not the way of fixing your so-called problem. Speaking on a personal level, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being mixed. And something about us Moroccans is that even if we have a small percentage of that blood, we are not shy of showing it. We are proud to be Moroccan. So I really don't believe that the Moroccan blood will ever go extinct. And rest assured, you needn't worry because 23% of Canada's population are immigrants, and we can all agree that Canada is doing very well, while Morocco's percentage of immigrants is only 0.2%. They are worried about 0.2% people. You know, unfortunate if you ask me. I mean, they could have helped us grow and whatnot, but instead, we are trying to get rid of them. How very sad. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, have a good rest of your day. And remember, we should not reduce the number of sub-Saharan African immigrants. Thank you.